आपको सीधे फिर से दिल्ली इकोनॉमिक कॉन्क्लेव में लिए चलते हैं, जहां पर इस वक्त सिंगापुर के डेप्यूटी प्राइम मिनिस्टर बोल रहे हैं.
Is impressive. Still a long way to go because India has underinvested in infrastructure. Still a long way to go, but the momentum and the pace of change is impressive in recent years. The fact that India is now amongst the leaders, in fact I would say the leader amongst large countries in universal digital identification and in fact providing a unified payments interface is really impressive. You've leapfrogged the rest of the world. The progress made in overcoming a fragmented tax system and then one that also involved multiple layers of tax for businesses through the GST reforms is impressive, not just from an economic perspective, but from a political perspective. The restoration of macroeconomic stability, both monetary and fiscal, is impressive. And most fundamentally, I would say, the intangible, changing the culture, and in particular, building political support for good economics. I think that's been the main underlying lesson of India in recent years. Building political support for good economics. Job not done yet, but I think it's been really impressive how the culture is changing. How corruption is being tackled, how invisible money is being tackled, and I'll just have to add to what Minister Jaitley said when you spoke about invisible money and its role in democracies. You're not the only large democracy with a problem of invisible money. But impressive how the culture is being changed. But India's challenges are larger than most, and likewise your opportunities are, to my mind, the largest amongst the democracies of the world. The opportunity to raise standards of living and to create inclusivity, even as you grow your participation in the global economy, are the largest amongst the democracies of the world. And I think the three key areas that will require much greater emphasis going forward for India to achieve its potential will be to do, firstly, with empowering and strengthening the role of cities. Secondly, scaling up skills training and creating a much better link between skills and jobs. And I'd say there we have a looming crisis in India. And thirdly, providing a level playing field and avoiding protection of incumbents. All these three challenges are challenges faced everywhere in the world. India's challenges are simply larger and more complex, but these are fundamental challenges. We know that cities and localities matter. And the politics of the last few years has illustrated that very vividly. Whether you look at Brexit, or the last US elections, or the French elections, or the Turkish elections, wherever you look, popular sentiment has been remarkably different and has diverged between the large metropolitan centers versus the suburbs outside of the metropolitan centers versus the small towns versus the rural countryside. Remarkable divergence in popular sentiment. Even within the US Rust Belt, which gave Trump his victory, even within the Rust Belt, there's a vast divergence between some cities and others. If you take Michigan as an example, large state, President Trump won by just 10,000 votes out of 4 million voters, just 10,000 votes out of 4 million. But if you look at the map of which counties were won and lost by the Republicans and Democrats, Trump won almost every county. About 75 out of 83 counties were won by Trump. But total votes, he only won by 10,000 out of 4 million, because the large metropolitan cities, and in fact some smaller thriving cities, voted Democrat. Why the gulf? People in some cities are feeling down, some towns and some rural areas are feeling down, and people in some cities are not feeling down and are in fact thriving. And it's a fascinating story because if you look at Michigan as an example, Rust Belt state, you'll find that there are places like Milwaukee, Minneapolis. If you go down the Rust Belt to Pittsburgh, you'll find the same thing. Thriving cities. They were Rust Belt cities, which had industries that disappeared. But they've reinvented themselves. They're diversified. And there's a mood of optimism in these cities. People don't feel down. Even in smaller cities, like Kalamazoo, many of you wouldn't have heard of it. It's probably less than 100,000 people. Thriving. Kalamazoo in Michigan. So why is it some cities are doing well and other cities and towns are not doing well? The reason has to do with local government, local and state level relationships, and state and federal level relationships. And that is a massive opportunity for India. There's several reasons why we have to focus on cities. First, it is where we can best integrate quality of life initiatives, which are typically about infrastructure. It's where we can best integrate initiatives that have to do with providing clean water, wastewater treatment, solid waste management, public transport, the whole range of initiatives. If you have it run nationally, you'll end up having silos. If you have it run locally, it is under the charge of the mayor. Someone is accountable for integrating, and there's tremendous synergy in the way we integrate these initiatives. Critically, it is also the way we empower citizens to be able to find fault where there's fault and to be able to drive change. It is at the city level that citizens can be empowered to drive change, to raise the quality of life and the quality of infrastructure. Second important reason is that ultimately the challenge is about creating communities of learning. That's the challenge of inclusivity. Whatever job people have, whatever previous education they have, everyone can improve, gain skills, have a good job, and keep improving in life if you've got a community of learning where it's not each man on his own. And communities of learning, particularly in large societies, are best organized at the city level. It's the relationship between the mayor, the educational institutions, the leading employers, the unions, the NGOs. It's a partnership. Because inclusivity at the end of the day is not just economic inclusivity, it's not just Gini coefficients and inequality numbers, but a social partnership. It's about social inclusion. And social partnerships can be immensely motivating for everyone who's involved in the partnership. The employer who takes pride in educating young people or retraining middle-aged people, those individuals themselves who feel that someone is investing in them and they want to put in even more effort themselves, the educational institutions and the local political culture that feels that it is delivering something through combined action. So cities are where social partnerships are best formed. And critically, I would say, cities are where the link between skills training and real jobs is best achieved. We don't have to look far for examples. India has them. I was struck by the fact that Bhubaneswar won a top award, international award this year. It was